There is a fantasy hockey storm a-brewing on the horizon. In Raleigh, North Carolina, let's talk about the Hurricanes and their top 5 targets. And get this paper.
You're Locked On Fantasy Hockey, your daily podcast on fantasy hockey.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We are fired up for this one. My fantasy fanatics, welcome back inside the lab to the Monday episode of your daily 30-minute source for everything fantasy hockey. It's the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. I'm joined, as always, by my distinguished co-host, Mr. Steele Rodin. On the side of the microphone, it's your boy, Big Flip Livingstone. You know what it is, everybody. Shout out to the everydayers holding us down and making us their first listen every single day. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel Sportsbook, where right now new customers get 150 bones in bonus bets if your first $5 wager hits. Mr. Rodin, as always, I'm fired up for today's episode. But this Carolina Hurricanes team, which is our latest stop on our NHL-wide breakdown of every single team's top 5 targets, has a real good-looking forward group. I'm excited to hear what you have to say. I've got some intriguing honorable mentions as well. And, you know, we like to put Goldmine on teams. I'm feeling pretty comfortable of going back to the well over and over again for some of these cardiac Canes.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely an interesting team, and they have done a lot. They've made some pretty significant moves and trades throughout the offseason so far, bringing in Nikolai Ehlers, signing him to a long-term deal. They bring in Keandre Miller via trade, signing him to a long-term deal as well. I think Keandre Miller is an interesting player in itself and what he can do, because we both really liked what early on in his career with the New York Rangers kind of fell off a little bit fantasy hockey-wise. So maybe this is, again, one of those change of scenery situations where he can start to establish himself as a defensive defenseman, but also helping on the offensive side of things. Shane Gostisbehere, I think he's a great streamer, especially for what he brings on the first power play unit. Over 45 points, I believe, last year from the Carolina Hurricanes. 45 points exactly in 70 games for him. Another name I really like and I'm going to keep an eye out for as a streaming option on a week-to-week basis, depends where he is Jackson Blake. I thought he was very interesting last year as well. 17 goals, 17 assists, 34 points at the age of 21, 142 shots, 30 blocks, 19 hits. Again, still a very young cat right now. So those would be my honorable mentions. Again, there's some, Taylor Hall could be a streaming option on a very advantageous, at a very advantageous schedule for the Carolina Hurricanes. At number 5 on my list, I went with Logan Stankoven.
Yes, sir. Me too.
I think this is a very, very capable player fantasy hockey wise. And again, that's why I had a lot of those honorable mentions in there, because it really depends. But he gets traded from the Dallas Stars in that Mikko Rantanen trade. He finds himself kind of not being able to find his mark or find his ground in Dallas. He got a little lost in the bottom 6 because of how good this young team is. Robertson, Hintz, Wyatt Johnson as well. Now Rantanen, of course, in that trade. So Logan Stankoven finds himself in Carolina. I thought he had a great playoff run with them. I thought he contributed more than anybody outside of Sebastian Aho and Seth Jarvis. 5 goals, 8 points in 15 games, 24 shots with a 20.8 shooting percentage in the playoffs last year. His time spent in Carolina for the 19 games, he had 9 points, 12 penalty minutes, 46 shots. He was at an 11 shooting percentage as well. Blocks and hits, that's going to be relatively low for this type of player.
Cherry on top.
Yeah, just cherry on top kind of stuff. And again, I just think at such a young age, right there with Jackson Blake at 21 years old, you can see the skill set and the potential of what he can do playing in the top 6 if he is in there on a regular basis. So I think we're going to see him get some power play one time at times. Most likely going to be on power play number 2, just because of how set in stone that first unit is, especially with Nikolai Ehlers coming into the play. But I think he can do some damage, and we saw him do damage in front of the net in the playoffs last year.
Love your honorable mentions. I'm going to also throw the goaltenders in there because to me, like I was just talking to you off air, as much as this is a defensively stingy club, right there at the bottom of the league almost every single year in shots against per game. And that's a good thing for goaltenders. They allowed 24 shots, 0.9 against per game last year. So that usually makes you want to go target those goaltenders. These two fit into that bottom end of that mold of talking about the 0G strategy, but there's too many good forwards in the mix for this team for me to put either goaltender. You got the concerns with Freddie's health, and you've got Kochekov's inconsistency. So shout out to Blake, Keandre Miller, all those other honorable mentions, and also don't forget about this really good young Russian on the blue line and Alexander Nikishin. So Stankoven at 5 for sure, Steele. You said it all. That blue line and the pretty solid goaltending, at least on the ice, separating from fantasy for a sec, really props up the ability of this forward group to score goals. I think Nikolai Ehlers comes in at 4 for me, Steele, because of that elite offensive upside that we've seen from him at times. You said it so nicely off the top of the episode about that change of scenery. And then you look at what's going on in the rest of this top 6 forward group and that top power play unit, which he's most likely going to be a part of. And you look at also this team scored the 9th most goals in the NHL. I'm going to throw Nikolai Ehlers in there at number 4. Could be a really big year if this guy can stay healthy.
Yeah, he comes in at number 4 for me as well. The new addition to the Carolina Hurricanes, very likely to skate on the top line with Sebastian Aho and Seth Jarvis. Maybe Andrei Svechnikov gets in there. He's going to get power play one time. He's a proven 25-plus goal scorer in this league, which he has done perennially almost every single season of his tenure in the National Hockey League. Elite skating ability, offensive zone awareness. He really could thrive in Carolina's, fast-paced puck control system under Brindamore as well.
Well said.
I think you're going to see a low ADP value just because of, again, the team he's playing for, as well as, again, just being a new body, trying to learn the system, find that chemistry off the top. The ADP could be a little bit lower, so he could actually be a potential draft day steal if he starts to click really well with Aho and Jarvis on that top line. Yep. And again, like you just mentioned, health is always a watch point with this player. But when he's in the lineup, he's dynamic and he's very fantasy relevant. He had 63 points in 69 games last year. But in 2023-24 season, yeah, he did play a full 82-game season. He hasn't done that since 2017. Injuries are a major concern with this player. So while he can be close to somewhat a point per game player sometimes throughout the years, there's a lot to watch out for when it comes to injuries and this player right now. So he comes in at number 4 for me. I like him at this position.
We've entered the echelon of teams in the NHL, and probably a couple of episodes ago when we hit the Ottawa Senators, Florida Panthers. Check out those episodes, by the way. Everyone out there listening, every single team Steele and I will cover and continue to do so all summer long. Tomorrow, Tuesday's episode, we got the Edmonton Oilers. These are some really good teams now, obviously, Steele. We went through the muck. Now we're up at the top. And when I look at this team on paper in terms of the Carolina Hurricanes, bringing in these names, and I know Keandre Miller's not a superstar, and either is Nikolai Ehlers, but these are big money deals. These are players that really do kind of stretch out the depth of a team that was already knocking on the door. Did Florida dismantle them in the Eastern Conference Final? Yes, they did, to the tune of 4-1, and I believe Florida scored 5+ goals in every single game, if not for one. So it's going to be a real pressure-like season, I think, in Carolina. And can the Sebastian Ahos of the world put up the test? Can a young player like Seth Jarvis really establish himself? Let's talk about it after the break.
Put myself on mute there. We will talk about it after the break. And I also wanted to add with Nikolai Ehlers as well. He could really make a difference on the power play too. When you look at what Carolina did in the regular season, they were actually one of the worst power play teams in the league, only ahead of San Jose, Los Angeles, New York, Boston, Philadelphia, and the Anaheim Ducks. They were rocking at an 18.70% on the power play. So that can get up potentially to a 23, 25, somewhere in between there. The penalty kill, we all know, is fantastic. They led the league in penalty kill last year and in the playoffs as well. So just wanted to throw that caveat out there for Nikolai Ehlers and his value.
You know, we love our stats on this show, Steele. Top 3 fantasy targets of the Carolina Hurricanes coming up right after the break. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel Sportsbook. Summer sports are in full swing. Scotty Scheffler, Steele, dominating once again on the links. And whether you're all about the baseball under the lights or the golf on the green, or even some high-stakes footy action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game more exciting. You're already in the action. Why not make it even more thrilling? With FanDuel, you get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. I don't know about you, Steele, but I'd rather be making some parlays than be hitting that sand with too much sun. Have you been using FanDuel? Because you need to today, where new customers can bet $5 and get $150 back in bonus bets if your first bet hits. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started.
And thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Continue to smash that subscribe button, the follow button, leave a 5-star review for your boys here, Livingstone and Steele Rodin. Number 3 on the list for your boy over on this side of the camera.
I knew you'd have
Svechnikov. I'm sorry,
Go
bud.
ahead. I know. Go ahead.
It's Seth Jarvis. Seth Jarvis comes in at number 3 for me. I think he's an absolute stud, though. Back-to-back 67-point seasons, back-to-back 30-plus goal seasons. Physical aspect to his game ranging anywhere from 70 to 115 as a career high for this player. 51 blocks back-to-back seasons as well. Career high 204 shots on net. The shooting percentage is fantastic every single season as well, somewhere between 15 and 18%. I think this kid has it all. Yeah, he doesn't take any dumb penalties, which, again, in those categorical leagues may sometimes hurt you, and maybe that's why his value comes in at number 3 for me. And you can also see, like, when you look at the Yahoo rankings, his pre-rank was 85th. He finished the season 105th in Yahoo rankings at the end of the regular season. Really good on the power play, really good shorthanded as well. He had 5 shorthanded goals last season with 2 shorthanded assists. So he is a dual threat out there on the power play, on special teams, and you just love his goal scoring ability. You love his clutch factor. He's been one of the best players, if not the best player for the Hurricanes. The last 4 seasons, they've been in the playoffs. He has 43 points in 55 playoff games. He is an absolute gamer right now. And I know why you love this guy. I know why you love this player. He's probably higher on your list. You know why I love Svechnikov as well. Seth Jarvis, he's an absolute stud out there. Putting his value right now, I'd have to say I would take Seth Jarvis somewhere in the 6th to 8th round range. I can't exactly determine where it would be, but somewhere in that range right there, just based off of what I've seen the last 2 years.
Look, in the fantasy game, Steele, half of the battle is being able to kind of spot young players on the rise before other GMs do, and you get behind them. And my player in Seth Jarvis is definitely one of those guys that I've been talking about. And it's not about being right. It's about getting the value on your team for players that are difference makers. And when you get a difference maker at both ends of the ice in Seth Jarvis, a high motor, really good hockey IQ, all of those kind of intangibles that put together a complete player, this guy, Steele, also has finished in the top 15, top 12 in Selke voting. He gets it done at both ends. You mentioned the physicality. He is number 2 on my list, and I understand it's probably a little riskier in terms of you're going to know what you're going to get with Svechnikov if he's in the lineup, when he's in the lineup. However, I think you'd agree with me that the ceiling is much higher with Seth Jarvis, and I love that elite scoring touch that he also brings. Let's not forget, Steele, this guy made the Canadian team at the 4 Nations face-off, and that's another little cherry on top. He came in on NHL.com's top 200 at the 56th spot, 5 slots ahead of Sebastian Aho. Just a little food for thought there. Svechnikov comes in at 3, though. Go ahead and talk about your boy, Seth Jarvis, whoever you want. These are really good forwards that I'd be happy to have on my team.
Yes, they are. And again, I think with Andrei Svechnikov, he also falls into that area of the 7th or 9th round. I actually have been disappointed with this player the last 2 seasons. Health concerns, obviously, hasn't been able to play a full 82-game regular season since his rookie year back in 2018. He's missed, anywhere between 10 to 25 games over the last 3 years on a regular basis. So that is a concern. That is a major concern. But even when even when you take this guy out of the lineup for that many games, he still somehow finishes 115th in Yahoo rankings at the end of the regular season. So there is the potential. That's why last year he was in our high risk, high reward category and
great
tier
episode
for going into, it was a great episode. We're going to do one of those again
for sure.
But that's why he was in there, because major health concerns and injury concerns with this player can't, for whatever reason, seem to stay healthy. But he's a power forward with elite potential.
Yes.
And I have been disappointed the last few years because he had a career high 69 points. Then he missed an extra 14 games, went down to 55. Then from 64 went down to 59 games played and went down from 55 to 52 points. Then he actually went up to 72 games played this last year, but still only finished with 48 points. So I've been very disappointed, but I see the potential and I don't want to give up on this guy. He's got dual eligibility. Fair. He's got dual eligibility on left wing, right wing. Again, you can see the 30 goal potential. He has done it before in that career season. You can see a 65, 70 point ceiling when he's healthy if he can play 75 plus games. He's very strong in category format, hits, shots, power play usage, penalty minutes as well at some points. 59 penalty minutes the last year, 148 hits, 180 shots for this guy. Again, returning from past injury, but he is heading into the season fully healthy. Typically undervalued in drafts due to the injury concerns, like I just mentioned. But I think he's a great upside if he's paired up with Aho or Ehlers or Seth Jarvis, these top three guys that we just talked about. He falls in at number 2 for me.
I would also like to point out that it feels like this guy has been in the NHL for forever. And when you look at his career's games played and that he's been in the NHL since he was 18, Steele, he's only 25 years old. He's got nearly 500 games under his belt, and think about what he would have if he stayed healthy. Take in how good he was in the playoffs last year. Let's also remember that I think the way that they got dusted by the Florida Panthers, we kind of forget how good he was because he was sensational. 8 goals, 4 assists, 40 shots on net. He, I believe, led the team with 12 points or was leading them for a period of time, was really good. So if he can translate what he did in the postseason and really entering the good chunk of his prime here, Steele, I think you're saying nail on the head type stuff here with a player that perhaps will be overlooked. If he can stay healthy and you add yourself another power forward or two to augment a good, let's say, after your first 2 picks to your team, like elite guys, and you start surrounding them with players like Svechnikov, your team is going to be very hard to take out in categorical leagues. That's what we do, Steele. And let's talk about Sebastian Aho. I might throw some more love to Seth Jarvis. We're gushing on these Canes, Steele, because I think it's a big season upcoming in Raleigh.
It really is. And look, you said it before we hopped on this podcast or this episode that this is a team that no matter what, it just feels like they can't get over the hump. And we've seen it over the last, 5, 6, 7 years now where they can play. They are a dominant first round team. They get into the second round. They start slowing down a little bit. They get to the Eastern Conference Finals and they get absolutely smoked. So this is a sticky situation. A lot of weird things were going on during the playoffs last year, talking about maybe Brind'Amour was going to get fired or, they were going to re-sign him. Then they end up signing Taylor Hall during the playoffs and they signed another guy during the playoffs. It's like, this is not the time to be doing this. Focus up right now and get after this chip. We're going to talk about the number 1 target from the Carolina Hurricanes after the break. And you can stay tuned in the rest of the week for our entire NHL top 5 target breakdowns. Sebastian Aho coming up next. Once again, thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey podcast your first listen every single day. Continue to smash that subscribe button, the follow button for your boys here, Livingstone and Steele Rodin. Share with your friends and family out there. It really does mean the world to us. Thank you so much for all that support, getting us to 2,000 subscribers this summer. It's incredible. Flip, over to you, my friend. keep gushing over Seth Jarvis if you would like, and then we can get to Sebastian Aho.
I think perhaps there's been enough of that on this pod. So let me just leave it at, if that player is still around after the 6th or 7th round this year, Steele, I'm going to be shocked because I really do see 80 points from this player all day long. He had 67 and 73. It's not a stretch. Don't sleep on him. I think he's got, I don't want to say superstar, but the kid's a star. And I just love his moxie. And that's going to translate into big fantasy success. That a little bit more gush anyway. Sebastian Aho has proven that even though his teams fall short, he still brings it offensively. And there might be something to be said about him not putting up in the clutch, but he has 19 game-winning goals, Steele, over the last 2 years. 9 last year, 10 the previous, and actually 9 and 9 the 2 years before that. So he can score. And we saw 89 points from him just a season ago. He becomes very attractive, most definitely. We got to separate his perhaps inability as the big name or, the number one guy, quote unquote, and the captain to take his team over the top. But I think we've got to put that aside because if you're looking for some really good offensive love and, hey, 60 hits, 30 blocks, almost 50 penalty minutes, there is a lot of fantasy value in this player. So separate his inability to perhaps get it done in the postseason because he can't get it done for you in the regular season.
Yes, he can. He is Carolina's most consistent offensive weapon on the squad right now. Averaged 0.95 point per game the last 3 seasons combined. He actually was a point per game player in that career high 89 points in 78 games just 2 seasons ago. Shoots a ton of pucks, a lot of volume shots on net from this player. Plays in all situations, even strength, top power play, penalty kill. His time on ice and point opportunities are at an all-time high. Reliable floor of 70-plus points with an 85 to 90 point upside when things are really going well. And again, it all depends on the health of his line mates in Svechnikov and now Nikolai Ehlers potentially. Very underrated in multi-cap formats. Again, like I said, really good in shots on goal, 200-plus. Face-off wins. He's one of the best in the league right now. I think he's honestly one of the best centermen in the league when you look at his overall game defensively in the offensive zone. Corsi for over 62% as well. Most of his zone starts come in the offensive zone at 63.8%. So he gets into those areas and starts in a very good gets an opportunity in the offensive zone majority of the time right now. So when you look at him, the chemistry with his wingers in Jarvis, Svechnikov, potentially what he can form with Ehlers, solidifies him as an elite production outlook. And I think honestly, again, if you're in a 16-team league, this guy's a 2nd round draft pick. There's no reason he should be falling outside. He should be falling outside the 2nd round. I would take him somewhere between the 25th pick and the 32nd pick in those 16-team leagues. If you get to a smaller league, 10 to 12, I think he just falls out the 2nd round. Probably snag him in the first couple picks of the 3rd round.
Yeah, I might put him a little bit farther back, but not by much. I guess I just also need to see. This is the classic case of what I would say. There's been a lot of change with this roster over the past couple of years, Steele, and a lot of players that have been plugged in and out. So let's see what this team does to start the season before, you know what I'm saying? Like,
he's
right.
I mean, he's never diminished, though. They bring in Jake Gensel. He was great.
Yeah,
they bring in Mikko Rantanen was actually slowing him down a little bit, but he was still pushing through. You bring in Nikolai Ehlers. Again, you're going to have to form chemistry, but that's why, again, you can throw Andrei Svechnikov back up on that top line if things aren't working. You know you have the chemistry there. I mean, you're not going to put Stankoven because, I mean, you could, but you're not going to move. You're not going to move Seth Jarvis from the right side. And
that's a fact.
Stankoven was more of a right wing player.
And now we're getting out of control a little bit. Let's also just throw a cherry on top. If you're in those random leagues that do have face-off percentage, Sebastian Aho also career high 55% of his draws last year.
Yep.
This is going to be a good team. Do you think the Washington Capitals repeat 111 points? Probably not. And then you look at this Carolina team knocking on the door. Maybe they are the best team in the East, at least on paper. I'm excited to talk about the rest of the teams on top of them here, Steele. We got the Edmonton Oilers coming up on Tuesday's show.
Tuesday's episode. I wonder who's going to be number one.
Oh.
It's actually a good conversation, though, because Leon Draisaitl has been one of the best goal scorers in the league right now. But Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, the Edmonton Oilers. After that, who really cares if you get one of those players in your fantasy hockey team? Thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. For your second listen, please check out the Locked On NHL Podcast, because there is no offseason. They're bringing you the daily league-wide stories that matter the most with local coverage you love from Locked On. Find Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. From your boys here, we wish you good luck with those summer bets. Who knows? Maybe Scheffler really did pull off one of the greatest victories in a very long time in establishing himself as one of the best golfers ever. We're going to have to find out tomorrow because we're recording a little bit early. Thank you so much, and we shall see you back here again tomorrow.
Peace.